All right, welcome to the American Veteran Business Podcast, where we shine a spotlight on the remarkable journeys of veteran entrepreneurs who've taken the skills and discipline honed in the military and apply them to the business world. I'm your host, Dave Maestas, and joining me today is Emilio Natalio, right? From
Yes.
Panama City, Florida, Army veteran, and he owns Training 101 Academy. So it should be pretty exciting. So today we're going to explore the stories of him and his life and how he transitioned from the military to the business world. So welcome, Emilio. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Right on. I'm happy to hear you're from Florida too, up in Panama City, right?
Yes, sir, I am. We're close on the map, but we're still pretty far away.
Yeah, I don't think people understand, just how, you know, uh, how much depth there is to Florida, and because I think from me to you is probably like 6 hours or so.
Yeah, give or take. Yeah, it's a journey. It's a journey. Even for me to go to Orlando or Cape Canaveral, go on a cruise. That's an all day affair to get down there, and I'm in the same state.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. So, I don't know. I kind of like to stay down here anyways. So, actually, I
Yeah.
moved from Washington State to Florida a couple years ago, and
Oh, nice.
yeah, yeah, I love it. It's been an awesome experience. So, one of the first things we like to ask, is where did you grow up?
I'm an Army brat, as well as a retired Army guy. But I went to high school an hour north of here in Enterprise, Alabama. So that's where I graduated high school from, formerly known as Fort Rucker area, Fort Novosel now. But I grew up in Fort Campbell, if that sounds familiar to you.
Oh yeah,
I grew up at Fort Ord a little bit there for my dad was attending DLI.
yep.
Panama, not Panama City, Florida, but Panama City, Panama. I lived down there for a couple years and ended up graduating high school in Enterprise High back in, I think, the 97. So a couple years ago. So to say where did I grow up at? The world at that point in time.
Yeah, Panama. That's a beautiful country. I've been there several times. Of course,
Yes.
with the military, and man, I had great training down there. A lot of fun, in the city. So,
Yeah,
um,
I will tell you, I grew up there just post Just Cause. Like it
yep,
was Just Cause just happened, and then
yep,
Just Emilio was down there, right? And I had the opportunity, the assignment before I retired, to be stationed out of Honduras. And I was down in Hondo for a year. It's a year tour down there, but I got to fly out of the same hangar my old man flew out of at Howard Air Force Base at Fort Kobe back in the day. And I will tell you that Panama City is thriving. Like it is not the same as it was when I was growing up as a of course that's 30 plus years ago, right? But it
yep.
is. I love that area of the world. It's just a good temperature, good food, good people.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I would it's one of those places I would consider moving to if I ever, wanted to live somewhere more south. So,
Hey, exactly.
yeah, that's funny. So, you joined the military, you joined the army. What did you do in the army?
I'll back up a little bit. I was originally in the Air Force. I joined the Air Force. My roommate and I, and this is kind of a little backstory to the backstory here. My roommate and I, we graduated high school, and then we were know-it-all teenagers, obviously, right? We knew
Yep.
everything. We got an apartment downtown Enterprise for $175 a month total, not each, total. If I
Yeah.
can tell you what kind of lifestyle we were living. And then one day we were like, hey, we need to join, we need to go do something. Went down to the recruiter, the Air Force recruiter, and I joined right there. And I came back. I said, I leave in 2 weeks. And then he said, oh man, I thought we were just talking about that. So he left and went to the same recruiter, came back, goes, well, they couldn't get me out in the same timeline. I leave in 3 months. So he and I both joined the Air Force together. We we did two different career paths. And then we grew up in Enterprise, high school wise, so helicopters were always around, that kind of stuff. So we always talked about being pilots. always talked about it. And then finally, one day, I put a packet in, and then he called and goes, "I think I want to put a packet in too." I said, "I already did," and he's like, "Oh man!" So he put a packet in, so we both became warrant officers around the same time, and both became Black Hawk guys, and both retired. So um, that's what led me to the journey of joining the military, is because we were bored. We were, like I said, know-it-all teenagers at that point in time. We knew everything, 100%. But we joined the Army just because I wanted to fly at that point in time, and the Army had the best program around at the time, where they said, "Hey, you can fly." I said, "Okay," and so I put that warp packet in and got picked up. So it was a great journey, a great opportunity.
Yeah, that's uh, one of the careers that I always think about. Man, I would have loved to have flown helicopters, and I've had so many friends that went from the ranger community that I was in, to flying Black Hawks and all the other platforms that are out there. So
Yeah,
um,
I I, you
it's
know,
always
I would
go
I will
ahead.
tell you that I buddied up with those guys, your former friends, because as a former Air Force guy, trying to learn how to do land nav and how to army. Because there's no break in service. At July 2nd, I was an E5 in the Air Force. Midnight, I was a civilian until 10 a.m. the next morning when I got sworn back in as a sergeant in the Army, and then I went to warrant officer school. I I didn't know anything about the Army. Like I didn't know your the terms between the Air Force and the Army are similar, but they're not the same at the
Yeah.
end of the day. So I latched on to the first 11 Bravo, the former Ranger, anybody that was a green suitor prior to me, because you know, you guys knew it all.
Well, that's a smart move, and I think that probably helps you out with what you're doing today. And that um, everybody needs mentors. Everybody needs some sort of support to be successful. And I think you probably learned that quickly in what you're doing, or when you switched over. That hey, I needed some extra help for this. So you spent 20 years in the military.
Yep,
Where were you
a little over
stationed
22.
at?
I started out, obviously at Fort Rucker for flight school, and back then there was a surge, so we had a lot of bubbles, and bubbles being that there's no training involved because they didn't have people to do it. And then for some reason, another side journey here, they ran out of aircraft to give us at the end of the day for selection. So we sat for an additional 2 or 3 months, graduated from flight school, from primary, but we had no advanced aircraft to go to next because they just ran out. They didn't have anything. So we sat around for a while. So I spent 2 years there at Fort Rucker, just in the bubbles and bouncing around and going from there. And then I went to Korea, and I went to K-16, flew air assault out there for a while, VIP air assault, if you will. I was out there for about 2.5 years. I extended out there in Korea because it was great flying, it was easy, and I wanted to make pilot in command. And then I went to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, to the home of the 101st. I flew medevac there. I was the medevac safety officer for years out there. After that, went to Honduras. I was the battalion safety officer down there. Primarily flew medevac out of there. Also, I enjoyed the medevac mission, so it was easy for me to transition back into it. And then I ended my career at Fort Bliss, Texas, which a lot of people will say, "Oh my gosh, Fort Bliss." I'll tell you, it's one of the greatest places, hidden gems at that point in time for the training areas. You could fly around there and hit everything you want to hit, uh, training wise, and still miss a whole bunch. So I feel that I had a great career on the Army side, flying around doing stuff. I even had a great Air Force career on the front end, because without those guys, um, I wouldn't be sitting here where I am today if I didn't have that E6, who took young Airman Natalio under his wing and just set me straight and said, "Hey, you're doing X, Y, Z." It would never set me up to where I was got today.
Yeah, that's amazing, and that's a unique experience, um, that especially probably helped you, flying because you sort of knew the Air Force and uh, that flight sort of side, not that
I
necessarily you flew for the Air Force, but at least you probably understood a little bit more of
I would
those
say
aspects.
I would say I didn't a lot because I was an HVAC mechanic. I worked on air conditioners on buildings. So
Yeah,
I was so far removed from anything flying. I was a maintenance guy who just if your building was hot, I came in and fixed it. And if it was too cold, I came in and fixed it.
yeah,
But overall, again, a great experience for those guys. Like I told my earlier with my buddy, some experiences may vary, right? Uh, my guys, my supervisors when I was in the Air Force, E6s and E7s, they would run me PT wise the Army standard because the Air Force is different standards, right? They would say,
yeah,
"Hey, we're adjusting our PT to help Emilio get through." Oh, Emilio has these appointments downtown with the Army recruiter. Hey, that's a military requirement. Will accommodate. My buddy, on the other hand, again enlisted at the same time. Everything. They thought they were betraying him, betraying them. Like oh, you're leaving us for the Army, kind of thing. But my group, I couldn't get rid of them. I still can't get rid of them. It's they still like hey, that's the coolest thing ever. We got you were flying. I said you're retiring as an '06, and you think I'm cool? Come on, man.
yeah, yeah. That's funny. It's a crazy, crazy world.
Yeah.
Um, I spent some time at Fort Bliss. I went to uh, the battle staff course, that's out of Fort Bliss there.
Yep.
Uh, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed spending some time. I climbed like one of those mountains that's out there. Not that it's huge, super huge, but
Yep.
I just was bored and figured I'd go get the highest point I possibly could overlooking the area. So
Yeah, I guess I enjoy it. That place has good food. That place has good people. And
yeah,
again, you could, I mean, Fort Campbell's good. I like Fort Campbell because I went to middle school in Clarksville, so I have an attachment to that place too. But in the training area there, you could do the entire training area flying and still have three-quarters of a bag of gas. At Fort Bliss, you couldn't make it around the entire training area on a bag of gas. So you have so many opportunities to do dust landings, to do pinnacle landings, to do XYZ, work with the ground troops, etc., and in different environments. So it was a fun. I enjoyed it. Like I really liked Fort Bliss.
no, yeah. I so with along with my agency, I own explorefortcampbell.com
Oh, do
and
you?
discoverfortbliss.com. So those are just two of the locations that I have uh
Nice.
within our
Well,
media side. So
well, there's
um
the two plugs. I enjoyed Fort Campbell. I did. It's gotten big. I went back there for my daughter's graduation, and I always forget how big Clarksville is. And you go when I was a kid, I lived off exit 11. When I was an adult, I lived off exit 1. And then I was going to Austin P to see my daughter graduate, and I forgot how much traffic is on Wilma Rudolph for some reason. Like I forgot. So it's like it took you forever to get down there. But that's good. I like those are two endorsements. I like those two places.
yeah, crazy. Did you ever deploy to combat?
I did. I went yeah, 3 times. Yeah, 3 times. Twice out of Fort Campbell, flew medevac out of there. I flew out of Bagram the first time medevac, and then the second time I flew out of uh, what they called it Faldalki, or Shank back in the day, if you remember the last go around. And then the other time I was at Jaff, Jalalabad. So it was Bagram, then Jalalabad, and then Shank. So I got to see. I never went down south. I never went to Kandahar, but that valley there, up and down Chapman and Roberts Ridge and Bagram and all those places, like the back of my hand.
Yeah. That's funny, yeah, because you flew, so you definitely studied your terrain. I was always on the ground, but I always studied the maps, and I know Afghanistan extremely well. and I've been to numerous places over there as well. Um, I don't think that some people know there's some there's beauty to Afghanistan.
I,
Um,
I absolutely, absolutely, I agree.
yeah, and I have been in places that it would take 10 hours to drive to a hospital if you had to. And so I would be in some of these places where they would have these valleys along the rivers, especially, and they're lush gardens, and they've been groomed for thousands of years.
Yeah,
Um, and so you would walk into these valleys, especially, and they would have like these nice little places that you could just rest, and they were designed sort of, I think, to bring people together to relax from the sun or whatever. It's I would like to see someone write or do like a video, a some sort of presentation about these places because there's some really cool places that are there.
oh, I agree. Like when you're flying, even from we do the ring routes a little bit there, transferring patients, from higher care level down, getting back to Bagram to get them transported out, and you would just fly over there, and it's you're flying over mountain peaks, they're huge and snow capped, and then you cross into the Jalalabad Valley, and it hits you like a ton of heat. Because it's a whole different ecosystem there for some reason,
Yeah,
and if you've never been there, you would cross over that one peak, and the new people, you feel that heat. You're like, oh, we're about 10 minutes away,
yeah,
because when that heat hits you, you're back near Jaff, and it's just I thought it was besides all the war. Or I agree with you. There is a ton of places there. They're like, man, this place would be awesome if people weren't shooting at you. That this place would be great. Just go climb that mountain, like you said, well, El Paso. Just go find that, do a hike, and go check it out because it is. I mean, again, thousands of years of history there, and it's beautiful.
yeah. Huh. So when you retired out of the military, what'd you first do?
So before I retired, I retired during I started retirement during COVID, right? So that was the best time ever to try to retire. Let me tell you, because no one was open. But I was diagnosed with lupus back in 2012, post a deployment. All right, I got back, my hands quit working, I got all kinds of stuff. So I was on borrowed time already. I was the only active duty aviator, according to the flight docs. Yeah, I have no proof of that, but according to them, the only active duty aviator in all branches that had diagnosed lupus and was still flying. So they were acting like I was like a science experiment at that point in time. So I was doing mild doses of like methotrexate, which is like a low dose chemo stuff, very low dose. But certain things they would let me do, certain things they wouldn't let me do. Well, when COVID happened, they said, "Hey, you're probably going to have to retire." So I said, "Oh, okay, cool." And plus they gave me orders to Hawaii, and I didn't want to go to Hawaii because they promised me Fort Rucker. So I ended up retiring during that time. But before that, I do what every retiree does: starts analyzing his life at that point in time, and he's like, "What am I going to do day one? Oh my gosh!" Well, at that point in time, the COOL program just got activated in the Army, the Credentialing Assistance Online, credentials, whatever it's called. They just got activated, and they're rolling it out by stages. Fort Bliss happened to be in 2019. So in 2020, I started getting certifications, right? I finished my master's during the deployment, which was fun. So I finished my master's. They don't pay for a doctorate. So let me maximize my benefits at this point in time. So years prior to that, I had a W-4 who retired. I was a W-2 at the time. And he said, hey, here's some G Whiz old man information for you. I don't know what this Lean Six Sigma thing is, but every job interview I go to, they ask about this. He goes, I have no idea what it is, but everybody, he goes, I'm applying for aviation jobs, for local uh, rescue and, hospital jobs like that. But they always ask about Lean Six Sigma. He goes, it's the weirdest thing. Look into it. Yeah, okay, cool. Again, I was a W-2. I was still about 8 years away from, at that point, I didn't know, but 8 years from retirement. So when 2019 happened, I that conversation came back into my head, and I was like, oh, let me look. And I looked at it, and the cool program paid for it. So I got a Lean Six Sigma yellow belt done, a green belt done, and then a black belt done, and eventually my master black belt. So I ended up working for an online company, uh, instructing Lean Six Sigma at that point in time. And then I did that for about a year or 2 years, and then I picked up another online remote job working for a leadership certification program, which ironically enough, I got the leadership certification through the Cool program. So I've never had a job, if you will, uh, that I didn't have a certification through already. So through the Army, that helped that one. So that's what I did post retirement. That's what I did post retirement. I've worked online jobs and did remote stuff, and was able to go to my kids' award ceremonies again. So that was kind of neat.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'll tell you that in the military, and especially as you gain rank, you learn a lot of project management processes, leadership processes, but they might not necessarily, transition to the civilian world. And I think that's why, especially, having the certifications like the Lean Six Sigma is important, because that's sort of speaking their language, in the civilian world, of
I will agree.
how to do things.
Well,
And so,
I agree because it was a steep learning curve for me because, I was an aviator first off. I wasn't in the online training space. I could wiggle sticks. I could make things go up and down, right? At that point in time. But learning the terminology, I didn't know it's to me, SAS was something that you had in the aircraft for stability augmentation stuff, right? It wasn't you had SAS one and SAS two you turned on that stabilized certain aspects of the aircraft.
yeah,
SAS in this world, it's not that. So same
yeah,
words, just like I said about the Air Force and the Army, they sound similar, but they're not the same at the end of UX. I didn't know what UX, unexploded ordnance. Is that what that is? No, user
yeah,
experience, Emilio. Oh man.
yeah,
And so you learn terms like SEO, local SEO. Man, it just your mind just gets starts hurting for a little bit. And then you're like, oh, I got it.
yeah. But it's funny. Um, I'm writing an article about local SEO, and just how important that is for people. So it's good that it is, especially what it is, because it's
Yeah,
so crucial for a business.
it is. And during the when I worked for that leadership certification company, RBLP, Resilience Building Leader Program, we partner with a lot of veterans that have just retired and want to start a business, and get started like this. And the tipping point for all of this is you don't have a staff anymore. You don't have the one shop, two shop, three shop, four shop, and the six, right?
Yep.
You are the shops, and
Yeah.
understanding these small getting before the recording, before we talked, it was getting Google or a search engine to see you, right? Well, everybody just assumes I have a website that happens. Well, it doesn't. It does in a way. It does some in a roundabout way, but there's things you can help for those search engines to find you. SEO, local SEO, keywords, metadata. These are all words that don't mean anything while you're wearing a green suit, blue suit, or whatever kind of suit you're wearing there.
Yep.
And it's a steep learning curve. It really is. And you got to fully commit or don't, because if you do it half, you're going to spin in circles and be upset and stressed out and yell at the wife and kids for no reason. Just like all the
Yeah.
stress builds because you could have done something about it,
I
kind
think
of
the
thing. But
worst. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, yeah, go ahead.
The worst thing that I find in the business world is someone that goes out of business, and then I'll, do a scan on their business to see, what their online presence was. And I find that they didn't do any of the local SEO. They had no keywords on their website. There's numerous things that their basic foundation, their digital foundation, was never established. So I, kind of figure out that that's probably a good reason that they had some issues and why they're out of
Right,
business.
and I will tell you, yeah, I had a business partner on another business we run on side there, and my business partner is really into reality TV. Okay, retired W3, likes reality TV. That's his vice.
Yep.
Okay, I love him to death. We deployed together. We've been together. I got it. We've been buds for a decade or more. He applied to be on a show called The Blocks, which is entrepreneur focused. And I think the requirements are pre-launch up to 2 million in revenue. I think that's the criteria they use. He applied, and 30,000 people apply, and there's about 100 teams, I guess, give or take, that get picked up for every season. He got picked up on that side of the house. So, of course, he wants Emilio to go with him. Not really my bag, man. It's not really my thing, but okay, I'll support a friend. I've never seen the show. I've never heard the host. None of this stuff. But you get there, and the guy who runs it is a reality TV star. He's been on multiple reality TV shows, and he's very entrepreneurial mindset. So he's like, what can I do to marry these two things together? So we created the show. But the point I'm getting at is when you get there, you meet all these people. I mean, people selling coffee to beer products to dog training to XYZ, right? Everybody has the same problem, right? At this point in time, if you're pre-launch or you're not making money, they're like, my website gets no hits. I have this. And to break out of that, and I had a wonderful conversation last night about this with somebody. There were so many people with a phone, doing content and doing XYZ there. It you got to at these points. You've got to have a digital presence if you're running a business, and that proved to me that okay, maybe I need to get on a little more. Maybe you need to have a little more in-depth content on your social media, but you also need to make sure your website's up to date and clean and proper, and hits all those marks. Um, but yeah, we learned a lot there just talking to people. But even with the competition going on, just talking to people and oh, I've got the same problem. Oh, okay. So it's not just me. It's actually life.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So within the Training 101 Academy, what are some of the core things that you teach with your academy?
So what we do there is we primarily teach Lean Six Sigma, yellow belts, and green belts. We also teach the exam prep for the Resilience Building Leader Program training. They have 3 levels of certification as well. Um, in addition, we also have a construction safety that we teach because I was a safety officer in my entire career. So I like safety. I'm a safety nerd. So we have that just to appease me at that side of the house. But the Lean Six Sigma side of the house is where we have asynchronous and synchronous training, where you can go online, complete your yellow belt, complete your green belt on your own time, your own pace, or you can complete a project and we'll have one of our coaches kind of sit down with you where you're like, I want to take the course, but I actually want to fix something along the way. I don't want to take the course for the course sake. I want to be able to benefit out of this at something. So we'll set up, a 4 or 5 session call with you. And sometimes it's probably more because we get into it at that point in time. Now we're invested. Now we want to see you succeed. So we start off with 4 calls, but then it probably expands a little bit beyond. But we'll sit there and we'll discuss we'll help you define your project first off, right? Because what happens is a lot of projects start off way too big, right? They're way too big, and you're not going to solve, world hunger right now. We got to solve this one process, and then this process will kind of go from there. We'll kind of coach you through uh, the next steps of everything because quite honestly, I don't know the politics of your business. I don't know who your boss is. I don't know your relationship there. But what I'll do is I'll help you collect collect all the information and be able to present it in a great way. So you have a portfolio of projects of stuff like that. Kind of go from there. Um, Additionally, what we like to do also is to have people complete projects. One, because it's fun. You get to complete a project. You get to have that kind of hanging. But for like the guys who are pre-retirement, let's say the military folks, let's just since we're focusing on veterans here, you can have a portfolio of projects completed. So when you go to your resume, You build up, you go to the interview and you say, "Oh, I'm Lean Six Sigma Green Belt." I'm like, okay, what do you know? What have we worked on? Oh, I took the course. Well, yeah, that's step one. But I also have these projects. That I got these. I can show them to you. Here you go, or here's the folder of them. Here's the highlights of them, and that gets you one step further into the interview process. You're able to talk intelligently and be able to speak the language, like we talked about earlier, about what they're doing, because that helps to have that portfolio. Because I don't know your experience, but I see a lot of resumes come in and out and back and forth, and no one was ever in charge of 60 billion trillion dollars of equipment in the Army. Nobody was. You might use that for your NCOER or your OER because you're doing this, but in the civilian world, no one thinks that you were in charge of 40 billion trillion dollars worth of equipment as an E4. That's for us on that side of the house. But we need to help tailor your projects and your processes now. So when you do retire or separate, you have some good stuff to offer.
Yeah, and I think especially being in the military and with deployments, even training exercises, I mean, those are basically projects, and so they can easily transition over. And that if I think they should have some sort of means to be able to help, you know, bridge those experiences into a resume with somebody as they move along in their military career. Because
Yeah,
after your career is over, then you got to try and remember everything you did,
exactly.
and you don't have that. So the civilian world, I think they don't understand um, just how much planning that we do, and
Hmm.
everything from for us in the military or army, especially, you got your 5 paragraph op order, and then we moved into the military decision making process. So
Yeah.
there's a ton of planning for everything we do.
And then I'll counter with, the civilian sector doesn't understand that part, but then we don't know how to articulate that back that direction. Like, hey, what I'm doing here is basically the DMAIC process for Lean Six Sigma, or I'm doing project management here. Let me show you the phases I did, and then be able to document that. And maybe I'm not. And again, I hate to have a slide deck for everything because we're all military folks, but maybe have a slide deck or an A3 summary with what just the bullet points of everything, saying, hey, we did this. I save 4 minutes on this process every time we've done it. That we do this process 84 times a week. This adds up to this money, and then you have a number at the end or time savings. And civilian companies and bosses love those two things: time savings and money savings. So
Yeah.
it's a great thing to have, and it's a we enjoy it. We enjoy coaching. We enjoy the process and the light bulb moment. It was like, oh, that's a different project. So I need to focus on this lane to get this done because that's good to do. We'll parking lot that one for the next project when I complete this one. And you just
Yep.
kind of go from that direction. So it's exciting. And even with the leadership certification, we have a lot of leadership experience as military folks. I mean, we have that market's cornered, right? People have written about it, people have talked about it. The military has it. But being able to say you have a leadership certification, I went through this course. I understand these fundamental things. We're tested on it. There's an oral exam the company does at the end, not with my company, but with the credentialing body. You do the training with me, exam prep with me, and then you do the oral exam with the credentialing body. That's a different beast in itself, right?
Yep.
And the leadership certification is just like we're doing now. We're talking via online or in a live group. There's a curriculum. We talk about earning trust, AARs, developing cohesion, stuff like that. And then you go take your oral exam with a PhD, EDD, or whatever, they all have terminal degrees. It's just like this. And then and people are like, well, the oral exam. Well, guess what that is? That's like a job interview. They're going to ask you a question. You got to be able to articulate. It's not verbatim. It's not like what you probably went through selection and qualification in the Q course, and like I did in flight school, where you had to do something verbatim. It's not verbatim. It's I'll be able to
Yep.
articulate something. Oh, what is this? Oh, I have an example of that at my last job. Okay. And then you can kind of go through that and you can kind of talk through these processes, just like you do with the Lean Six Sigma coaching. Unlike the safety training, that's pretty cut and dry. That's don't put your finger in there, put the hard hat on, wear a vest, right? That's pretty easy. But it's still hard to get people to do that.
Yeah, yeah. So, before we wrap it up, tell me, can people go and use their GI Bill to work with you?
So to work with me, no. GI Bill is a very I I know a lot about the GI Bill from uh, my time with Resilience Building Leader program. I If you have questions directly about the GI Bill, I will answer any of them. However, for a company like myself, Training 101, or any other company out there, you must meet certain criteria. You must be in business for 2 years. You must have trained 100 people in that specific thing, and it must lead to a certification, license, or something like that. So and every state is different. So there's 52 state approving agencies, then the federal government for Department of Affairs, Veteran Affairs. The state approving agencies are the gatekeepers to make sure that everything's right. Then you have to get past that one, and then you go to the federal. So it's a lot lengthy thing on that side of the house. We will be credentialing assistants cool approved here in the next couple months. So you got to use your cool money on that side of the house for certain things. But if anybody's listening and asking questions about certifications and GI Bill, I'm not toot my own horn, but I have read the CFR backwards and forwards about no less than 300 times. So I am very versed on that one. If any other company wants to ask about how did they do it, I will take that 15, 20-minute call and show them how to do it. But it's a process.
Yeah. Well, what I can offer is that if you would like to write an article about that process, we have it linked to you and your website especially, so it creates that backlink as well.
Oh, nice.
Your contact info for them to contact you for more. We could always post that article on AmericanVeteranBusiness.com, and I've got other sites too that I think would be very uh,
I
advantageous for you to put them on, because
Yeah, I
any
will give you.
good.
I'll give you a little backstory on the GI Bill real quick and just really brief. 'Cause I know we got to wrap up here soon, but and in 2016 they decided, the powers that be, that said, hey, the GI Bill should also pay for training for certifications, right?
Yeah.
However, that didn't go into effect until around 2020. I don't know why, but you have in 2020 a pandemic, right? And then those people left. Those people retired. Those people got up. They got promoted. They left. They were a part of it. So they got lost in the sauce somewhere. That information is true. I have spoken to universities that you've seen in bowl games. That pretty high, pretty good, pretty well known universities and colleges. When I talk to their VA rep, they say it's not true. You can't use this for training. And I'm like, you can. It's 3315 alpha and 3315 bravo, paragraph, boom, boom, boom. It says right here in the regulation. I'm like, oh, I did not know. I'm like, it's just no one knows, right? And that's the issue. And you should be able to do it. You should be able to use it. And if it leads to a certification, you probably can. It's just the college has to, or the training company has to apply to be approved. And that's the hurdle.
Yeah. No, I can see why it'd be something that people might find a challenge just to even, you know, to do the homework as far as, making sure that you're qualified. So, um,
Yeah,
it's just one of those things where, especially if a business has enough business already, they're not too worried about it. But it might be something that they should plan on, because you never know what the future is going to bring, you know?
exactly. Exactly. You should at
So,
least get your ducks in a row and get everything ready, get everything to launch just in case, right? And to
yeah.
understand the process ahead of time, it's a great thing. And I'll jot down that article because it's great information. Like I said, it's good information for everybody to have, because I get the question a lot. Uh, oh, I'm going to be GI Bill approved. Yeah, you're probably not. Just because of this criteria here. But then you have to ask the state approved agency. Each director has their own criteria. It's really weird. You think it's just one standard. You're good or you're bad, but it's like, mm, you don't meet this one criteria here that we made up. Okay. You know,
Yeah.
so
And I don't know if you've met one of our co-hosts, James Beck, yet, but he runs a company called LifeBook Military, and I think as he's ramping his efforts up, especially, that might be something that he should look into, because it's just a great program overall. And I'll have him just contact you, and you guys
I
can talk
actually I have a meeting with him at noon Pacific time, 2 p.m. my time today.
today.
So yeah, today. So
Oh, awesome,
we
awesome.
we've chatted on the phone a couple times prior to this, and we
Yep,
met on a Facebook group. You know, don't talk to strangers online. I've been doing a lot of that,
yeah,
but
yeah,
it's been fun. But again, you know, the cool programs to back up there, the cool programs, they're also set up differently, right? The GI Bill is Department of Veteran Affairs. The cool program is DOD. However,
yep,
comma, they say Department of Army, you make your rules. Air Force, you make your rules. Marines, you make. So all the branches are all different. Like the Marine Corps doesn't pay for training, but they'll pay for an exam, right? Where the Navy will only pay for certain things.
yeah.
The Army does certain things, and a different process there. So it's a you've got to kind of help now. You have to dive full in and understand all because you're not going to understand any at that point in time. You're going to assume, and the Coast Guard completely different than all of them. So so it's
Yeah.
it's you have to kind of way through and go through the websites and download the regulations and kind of put your Army hat back on and act like you're going back to the board. In fact, that guy's going to ask you a question and you got to be able to answer it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So where can people find you online if they want to learn more about you?
So we're at training101academy.com. That's our main website. We're also, you can find our company page on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. And we also have a YouTube channel, training101academy.com is the channel.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm a YouTube fan, definitely. So this video will definitely be on YouTube as well. It'll actually be embedded into our website. So it'll be a great thing for people to find you numerous ways.
Yep.
So, just as we wrap up today, and I want to extend my, heartfelt thank you for coming up and being on this podcast and, sharing your story, because I think most people need to be able to get themselves out there so that people learn, exactly what you're doing. I learned a lot. I'm interested in this Lean Six Sigma as well. I have been for a long time, so we'll have to have another discussion after this. But thank you
Perfect.
for coming on the show, Emilio. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me. And I enjoyed it because I want people to screw up new things. Don't screw up what I screwed up. Screwed up some new things.
Yeah,
Then you could talk about it later on. Find something new.
yeah, yeah. Exciting, exciting stuff. So again, thank you, and till next time, we appreciate it.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you. This is Dave from AmericanVeteranBusiness.com. I want to thank you for joining us today. If you could do us a huge favor and click on like, subscribe, share us, and write a comment. That helps us out to make sure that more people see this. We greatly appreciate it. We'll see you soon.